A very good morning to one and all. Welcome to the session BA History Program, second semester. I am Sudhaji, Assistant Professor, Department of History, GFGC, Ripanpet. The topic what we are going to learn today is about Sher Shah and his administration, part 2. In the previous class, students have learnt about the central and provincial administration of Sher Shah. They also knew about the divisions of his empire, that is Sarkars and Parganas. They also learnt about the autonomous village communities and their functions. Learning objectives of today's session to enable the students to understand the administration of Sher Shah in the field of military, revenue, justice, intelligence department, and to make them to understand the greatness of Sher Shah as an administrator. Learning outcomes. At the end of the session, students will recognize the land assessment system. They appreciate Sher Shah who contributed to the Indian currency system. They locate the four grand trunk roads on the outline map of India. They admire him as a lover of justice who used to say that justice is the most excellent religious rights and it is approved alike by the kings of infidels and of the faithful. Let us begin with an introduction. As you know pretty well that Sher Shah was the most remarkable ruler of medieval India in administrative ability, strength of character, and achievements. His administrative work was most enduring and also more beneficial than that of Alauddin Khilji. His administrative reforms and love of justice have secured for him a place of distinction in Indian history. Let us start with an military administration, which is a continuation of the part 1. Although Sher Shah had begun his life as a civilian, he realized the importance of an efficient military establishment. Like other Afghan kings, he invited Afghans from all parts of the country as well as from Afghanistan and gave them posts suitable to their status and ability. His army therefore consisted mostly of Afghans. But there were troops of other nationalities also, including Hindus. Realizing that a feudal army was inefficient, he followed Alauddin's policy of establishing a permanent standing army which was paid partly by grant of Jagir and partly in cash from the royal treasury. But in all cases, officers and commanded by competent men selected and appointed by Sher Shah himself. The chronicle tells that Sher Shah took personal interest in the army and recruited troops and fixed the salary of individual soldiers by careful personal observation of individual recruits. It could be possible only for the troops who were enlisted at the capital, but he must have permitted his officers in the provincial capitals to enlist troops without references to him. Sher Shah revived Alauddin Khilji's practice of branding horses in order to prevent the troops from selling away the government horses and bringing in their places worthless ponies at the time of musters. Besides this, there was also a practice of recording the descriptive roles of soldiers so as to do away with the practice of sending proxies at the time of military review or battle. As a result of these reforms, much of the corruption was eliminated and the army became a powerful instrument of force. The relation between the individual trooper and his immediate officer was changed from one of personal attachment into something like an official tie. Promotion of the troops depended upon their merit and the actual service performed and was not left to the caprice of the commanding officer. Though his recommendation was duly taken into consideration by the Sultan, it is wrongly supposed that Sher Shah abolished the Jagir system and paid salaries of the officers and troops in cash. While the troops were generally paid in cash, the officers and nobles continued to enjoy Jagirs as before. Sher Shah, however, introduced one healthy reform. It was that of paying his troops individually and not through the commanding officers or nobles. As there was no separate department of police, the army used to protect the country from foreign invasion and internal disturbances and maintain peace and order. The chief Shikdar, and the village headman were in charge of the above function. Let us now learn about the composition of Sher Shah's army. His army consisted of cavalry, which had 1,50,000 cavalry, and 25,000 infantry, 300 elephants. It also consisted of artillery, which had guns and cannons, and there was also contingent of troops, which was kept in readiness for service. And his army was divided into divisions, each under a veteran commander. Let us move on to local administrative system of revenue. It was derived from variety of taxes called abwabs, which were levied on production, consumption of various trades and professions, and most of them on transport. Regarding the central revenue administration, the sources of central revenue were as follows: hairless property, that means unclaimed property, and the effects of deceased persons who left no heirs passed to the state. Commerce. Then comes mint. The royal mint was also a source of profit. Comes, which means one fifth of the plunder taken during the time of war went to the royal treasury. Presents. All vassals and nobles, officials, and visitors were required to make presents to the ruler, which constituted a lucrative source of profit to the state. Salt also yielded much money. Jizya was a poll tax which was realized from the Hindus, was a very profitable source of income. In addition to that, customs, land revenue was also a main chief source of income to the royal treasury. Inheritance, in addition to that, duty on the transport of raw materials and finished goods also yielded sources to the central revenue. Let us move on to land revenue administration. The land revenue administration of Sher Shah was a great improvement upon that of the Sultanate period and constituted his chief title to fame. He had a first hand knowledge of the working of the revenue system in his father's Jagir in Bihar. On his accession, he introduced the system which he had worked out in detail in Sasaram and Kawaspur Tanda. The land was measured in a uniform system and it was divided into three classes, namely good, middle, and bad. The state share was one third of the total produce. It could be paid either in cash or in kind. The patta was given to each cultivator, which was a title deed. Each cultivator has to sign kabuliyat, that is an agreement deed, signifying his assessment to pay the amount of revenue mentioned. Let us now learn about the three modes of land assessment practiced during Sher Shah's period. Agala Bakshi, also called Batai. Batai means sharing the produce with the peasant. It is of three kinds: Ket Batai, Lang Batai, and Rasi Batai. Second one, Nask or Kankut. It implies a rough estimate of the produce of the soil. Nakdi, also called Jamai or Zapti. It is a contract between the peasant and the government or zamindar. Next, let us learn about the currency, which I would like to explain in detail because Sher Shah was the father of Indian currency system. Why do we call him so? Because Sher Shah's outstanding achievement was the field of currency reform. He found on his accession that the currency system had practically broken down for the want of space. The debasement of the current coins and the absence of a fixed ratio between the coins of various metals. He issued new silver coin called Dham. A silver rupee weighed 180 grains, of which 170 grains were pure silver. His coins had his name, title, and the place of mint were inscribed in Arabic characters, and also some coins in Devanagari script, and some had the names of the four caliphs as well. Gold coins of pure metal of various weights, such as 166.4 grains, 167 grains, 168.5 grains. This pure minus its inscription lasted throughout the Mughal period and was retained by the English East India Company up to 1835. V. Smith rightly observes it is the basis of the existing British currency. These currency reforms provided very useful and did away with a great deal of inconveniences which was experienced by the general public and particularly by the trading community. These reforms have elicited high praise from modern numismatists. Edward Thomas, for example, observes that Sher Shah's reign constitutes an important test point in the annals of Indian coinage, not in its specific mint reforms, but also as correcting the progressive deteriorations of the previous kings and as introducing many of those reforms which the succeeding Mughals claimed as their own. Now, let us learn about judicial administration, which is once again a very exciting one. Sher Shah is reputed to be a just medieval ruler. His reputation was based not only on his personal solicitude for the welfare of his subjects but also on his efficient system of administration of justice. In accordance with the immemorial custom, he himself tried both appeals and initial cases. He held court in the evening of every Wednesday. Hence, he was the highest fountain of justice. Next to him, the chief Qazi, who was the head of the appellate court. Next, we have Qazi in districts and important cities. He who tried the criminal cases. The chief Munsif tried civil justice in the districts. Amins also tried civil justice in the Parganas. And there was also Amir Adil, who was a judicial dignitary. You can compare the judicial administration of Sher Shah with that of the modern day judicial administration which is practiced in India. Now, let us learn about administration of road transportation. When we think of Sher Shah, we should be grateful to him because he was a great road maker. Following in the footsteps of the ancient Hindu kings, Sher Shah constructed or repaired many roads in order to connect the capital with the various parts of his dominions. Four of his roads are well known. Are you interested to know? Let me tell you. First one, the road which ran between Sonargaon in East Bengal through Agra, Delhi, and Lahore to the Indus was 1500 kilometers in length. It was known as Sarak-e-Azam and might be identified with the modern Grand Trunk Road. The second one, the road from Agra to Burhanpur, third road from Agra to Jodhpur and Chittor, and a fourth road from Lahore to Multan. All the roads were well planned and connected important towns of the country through which they passed. You try to locate these roads on the outline map of India. That is the work for you. Let us now learn about the sarais. The sarais were served as rest houses for the servants and runners of the postal departments who carried the royal mail. According to Dr. Kunnungo, sarais were veritable arteries of the empire. Both the roads and sarais were useful for the transport of goods and also to send messages through dak chowkis of postal departments. Now, administration of intelligence department. Sher Shah revived the dak chowki and the espionage system of Alauddin Khilji. Daroga-e-Dak Chowki was the head of the postal department. Royal dak was carried by runners. News runners and spies were posted in all the important towns. Sher Shah used to get news of dissatisfaction of soldiers and rebellious intention of zamindars through the intelligence department before these became known as the areas of concern. As a summary, we can conclude about the administrative system of Sher Shah in the following words. Sher Shah was a constructive genius of high order. He transformed and reorganized the whole administration to serve the larger interest of the people, which entitled him to the rank of one of the greatest administrators of the medieval age. He followed the footsteps of his predecessors and pursued the benevolent policy towards his subjects and got dazzling success. Before winding the session, let us have a quick recapitulation of the main points what we have learnt in today's session. Military administration, central and local administration, land revenue administration, currency system, judicial administration, and administration of road transportation and sarais, and also about intelligence department. The book which I referred to prepare my talk is The Mughal Empire by Ashirbadi Lal Srivastava, published by Shivalal Agarwala and Company. Hope all of you would have got more information about the administrative system of Sher Shah and enjoyed the session. Thank you, one and all.